at the end of this, we'll have a recording to share and resources to follow up and all that kind of thing. So just to throw that out as well. But yeah, I think that works well.
All right.
So, we asked some questions when we sent out a form, and the first one, we heard a lot of questions and a lot of feedback around the vision and what's USASBE's vision and all that. And so I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper and see if you all had thoughts about what do you think should be included in that vision, right? Where can you see this organization going forward? Are there gaps that you think we can fill? And so I was just curious on a little more feedback and a little more thought around what you might like to see us become in the future and grow upon what we already have. So any thoughts or feedback there would be awesome.
Could you repeat the question, Don?
Yeah, sorry, sure, Tom. So there was a lot of conversation and a lot of feedback on, what's the vision, sort of going forward and long term. And so, I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on things that you would like to be included in the vision, where you think we can go, gaps you think we can fill, all that kind of thing. Just any sort of thoughts or ideas along those lines.
For me, and I put this in the survey that you sent out, I think it might be important to maybe implicitly position USASBE with respect to the ENT division and the AOM. What do we do that they don't do, basically? I think that might be strategically valuable in a perfectly harmonious, complementary, or whatever type of way. But I think that's a question that comes up sometimes in people's heads, and that might be strategically valuable for this organization.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that we're working on and thinking through are those sorts of partnerships, right? And which ones make sense and how to pursue those and build on ones that we already have, but then also to expand the breadth of ones that may be out there and allow us to bring more value to our members and deliver more value to other people. So it's a good idea. Other thoughts? Big ones, little ones, scary ones, simple ones?
Hi, I'm Lisa Getzler from Lehigh University in Pennsylvania.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. So one of the things I've been thinking about broadly, but also specifically to this group is, as we know in the last 5 years, certainly, more and more and more programs and organizations have adopted the perspective that entrepreneurial mindset is the future, and that we're going to help people be better change agents by having them see the world through the lens of entrepreneurial thinking. What I think we're missing in our broad community is delineation between organizations that are helping people build enterprises rather than, or in addition to, creating opportunities to build mindsets and skill sets. And I think there's so much crossover is good. I think there's a lot of muddied waters. And I think from my perspective as the director of an institute for entrepreneurship at a university, understanding which organizations I can spend time with that are going to help me help our student entrepreneurs build enterprises in all that means, as opposed to learn to be entrepreneurial problem solvers in other situations. That's the kind of thing that I'm thinking through. I've been talking with VentureWell about it, and I actually no longer participate in the ASEE entrepreneurship division, but did for a long time. And it seems to me we're all saying this much of the same thing in all the same venues. And so I'd be looking to know how, if at all, USASBE might be thinking along the lines of that question.
Yeah. I think those are very good conversations to have and ways to kind of weave things together. So we're having some of those in the background, and we'll be sort of updating people on what we're hearing and thinking about that in the coming time. But definitely a lot of duplication out there, I think, that doesn't necessarily need to be there.
Right.
Julie, you look poised.
Well, I'm reading some of these great group chat comments.
Well, I thought you could have your eyes going opposite directions.
Right, right.
You've been doing that for so long.
That's right. That's right. So, Dylan, one of the things that was on here, it's a question about, is USASBE looking to be an entrepreneurship program accreditation body across USA and beyond? I don't know if that's a discussion that you would like to engage in.
No. I don't know, right? It can be an interesting possibility to think about and pursue. I don't know if we're the right body or we have the resource. There's lots of those questions going on, but it certainly is a good idea to think about. If nothing else, I mean, I think there maybe is a space for that, and if there is, maybe we're the right organization to fill it. But that's the reason we do this, right? Is to get those kind of ideas percolating, and then the board and some other folks can start to think these through and see where we want to go with it.
Awesome. So let's kind of move on to the next question. So engagement, the word engagement was one of the things that really came up in a lot of the responses that were collected from the pre-survey. In an ideal situation, what does engagement look like and feel like for students? And let's maybe talk about that amongst ourselves.
Yeah, I think this is an important point and something I was excited to see come out of responses and conversations with people, and certainly now is coming up a lot in terms of engagement. So definitely curious to see, from your perspective, what does this engagement thing look like and feel like, and how might USASBE be a good resource to help you create that engagement?
I might even frame this as, what does engagement look like now that it's primarily online? What do you guys want from engagement with your students?
Yeah.
Here, by now, most of our institutions or all of us are online. We've made the transition. Some of us as recently as Monday. This is an opportunity for USASBE to start capturing these new methods and their outcomes, and publishing them, making them available. Some of the things that I thought were going to be disasters ended up being surprisingly effective. I could not have anticipated this a week ago. Anyway, so it's time critical, but something that we can offer the community right now.
Yeah, well, no, that's a great point, Cesar. And I know, Eric Ligori and Christoph Winkler put something out in EEMP, the USASBE journal. Eric and I just did a podcast the other day on the Teaching Tuesday podcast. And I think, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're sort of putting together a list, sort of a resource list like that. So the other encouragement I would have to everybody is, as best you can, try to do a really good job of documenting what you're doing and what works and what doesn't, at least so we can start to gather that, right? Because there's going to be a lot of little nooks and crannies and nuances that we might miss if we don't document it somehow or just capture it. So I think it's a good opportunity to gather that information and be able to be kind of a clearinghouse of sorts for sharing that out, given our really specific focus on the education, right? And the teaching, scholarship, and practice of this education piece. And I think doubling down on that, personally speaking, is a good idea.
If I can jump in.
Yeah, hey, Alex.
One of the challenges that I think we're facing, and I've seen Justin and Alex Bruton, yourself, offer great tools and for syllabi and so forth, and things that we could do as we transition online. You know, the challenge right now is that when we immediately had to go to an online format, pretty much most professors have their class planned out. And, you know, so for example, I know what I wanted to cover between now and the end of this semester because we're halfway through it. So I like your point about documenting about what's working and what's not working, because if I was to plan my class for the fall, I would probably plan it a bit differently and maybe be more inclined to look at the tools that you and others are offering for online education, where right now it's going to be difficult for me to change midstream to try to introduce that new material. But I think it's going to be worthwhile for all of us to look at this material to reimagine how we're going to do the classes when we're asked to do it online from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Thanks, Alex. And Eric just posted, if people can't see it in the chat, there was a good webinar that ICSB and USASBE hosted, and Jill and everybody else there made some really good points along these lines. So Eric had posted in the chat a link to the video of that. That's also a good resource. Other ideas of what this sort of new way of engagement looks like or feels like, or what you'd like it to be?
Cool. Well, let's kind of move on to the next question. But if anything comes up and you think of something that you want to share, please go ahead and throw it in the group chat, and we can always come back to it. So the next question that Don was interested in hearing about on the board too, and myself as well, is what current assets from USASBE are most valuable to you? Assets meaning, you know, like the conference, Teaching Tuesdays, syllabi, you know, networking. Like, what are the assets that are most useful to you?
This is Ernie.
Hey, Ernie.
University of Tennessee, Marketplace. How you doing? You're looking good.
You too.
Back to a little bit the previous question. I'm assuming that we'll be teaching online through the summer and fall. Okay. I don't see this as short term. I see this as intermediate term, you know, for the next 9 months. And I think that's you know, that observation, I guess it was Alex was making, is that, you know, I'm locked in for this semester, but I have to figure out how I'm going to do things differently in the future. So I've been really keen about what's happening and what people are offering and so forth. And one of the things that I've come to realize with Marketplace is that it's hard for people to envision what these words mean. I mean, you can write it down as to how to do things, but they don't have an experience base. So one of the things which I am just starting to do is do video recordings so that professors can see how this can be done, like using Zoom, where you're working with 3, 4, 5 students simultaneously, you know, and you're doing I call it an executive briefing, reviewing, you know, their analysis, their plans, and, you know, pro formas and all that stuff. And even to have presentations like we do a venture capital fair, and to show them how it works, so that I've just created a page that kind of explains these things, but as I'm looking at it, I'm realizing this is not enough. You know, the words on a page might entice them, but for them to get over the anxiety part is that I'm believing that I need to do video. And then the other thing is that, like, I'm connecting with some people in India, and I just got off the phone, that they would like to have it with somebody who is local, all right, not an American, because all the examples, the accent is going to be different and so forth. So I'm thinking we have to figure out how to help people who don't have the experiences that this particular group might have, and show them the way, because I have to say, this Zoom capability is just fantastic. I mean, we can do almost everything with that.
Cool. All right. So we can talk about
I have one point.
Malin, yeah.
Which I would like to add, because the experience, I mean, you know, we got in this a week ago as well, and have used very little online teaching, if I'm really true. I've been wondering for this past week, under what darn stone have we had our faculty? I've been an admin for 10 years, so I know what stone I sat underneath, but everybody else. And the thing is that we have had students who are screaming after this. Online teaching, synchronous, asynchronous, you name it, they have really been asking, and we have kind of said that, no, you have to get on campus and you have to do all this and blah, blah, blah. Now campus is locked. Nobody gets in. I don't even get in. My key doesn't function. So we actually have to carry on all teaching online, which means that we have now showed the students that, you know, when we said, no, we can't do it, it was more like, we don't know how to do it.
Mm.
Now, after 1 week of hard teaching, we suddenly realized that we actually know some. We can get a lot better. So I think we're gone beyond a point of no return in that respect. I mean, we're going to see a lot online. At the same time, I think we are going to see a lot of demand for on-campus teaching, because there's a lot of students now that they are not on campus who are very bewildered. They don't know how they're going to deal with their day.
Yeah, that's true. That's good points. Thank you. So just to make sure that's okay if people don't have thoughts on this, but current assets that USASBE has, right? The podcast, the journal, the conference, networking, you know, whatever it might be. What kind of things do you feel like are most valuable as a member of USASBE?
Just really quick, it's Patrick here. I would say you guys did a great job launching the journal. We placed an article there that has a model that we're using to build out our entrepreneurship program at UAB, and we're going to launch our undergrad major in the fall. And having that article with that framework and pointing to the journal as a place where we can cite like theoretically based stuff that we teach in entrepreneurship has helped that whole process. So I think strategically kind of doubling down on that journal and really making it into the absolutely best entrepreneurship education journal in the world, the place to go. I think it's a excuse me. I think it's a great asset, and you guys did a great job. But that would be the one that I would comment on.
Yeah, it definitely was a big lift for Eric and a lot of other people. So
Great job.
Yeah.
This is Wendy. Hey, Mandy.
Hey,
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, you.
No, I was just going to say, I'm old school though, but I think the best asset USASBE has is the other members. So I don't want us to forget the value of the conference and all the people that I still have relationships with and learn from, just from knowing the other members. And I never would have had a network like that. So I know we aren't planning to lose that in the mix, but I just have to put that in the list of our assets as a very important one.
Yeah. And I think part of the idea and is always like, how do we encourage and enhance that network and those connections, right? And so trying to find different ways to do that, I think is part of, I look at it as part of the fun challenge. So yeah, I would definitely second that, Wendy.
Joan, I'd like to also add, I really like the Teaching Tuesday podcast. I think that that type of thing, and perhaps even more things like this, where members might be able to get together, even in smaller working groups, to share thoughts and ideas over the course of a year on a routine basis, can only increase engagement with the organization. And I think, obviously, you know, the crown jewel is going to be the conference and the connectivity. But is there a way that we can, now that we're all so digital, that we can use digital medium to connect more frequently?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I think we've been testing out and playing around with the podcast for a little while, and I think it's doing a great job. I put something in the chat where if anybody wants to be featured on the podcast and share, it's really very focused on quick blurbs about teaching and enhancing classrooms. So, if you have something to share there, we'd love to feature you. It's a super painless process. So I shared my email there. But yeah, Mindy, to your point, that things like this, there's other things we can start to play around with, weave our community together a little stronger. So definitely look forward to ideas and thoughts, around that as well.
Yeah, we've played. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, just along those lines, I think of the SIGs. And we have, so as an organization, I mean, those are the different special interest groups where people can really congregate. And I think if we reimagine it a little bit, and now that we're so comfortable using this kind of a platform, I think it's an opportunity for the SIG leaders to truly bring those people that are interested in special topics together as a sub-community within the USASBE community. So I think that as we all get familiar with these different tools, we can reimagine how the organization could even be more effective.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what I was going to say also is we've played around with the regional conferences before, but maybe we could reestablish regional as virtual. The same thing Alex was saying with SIGs, but using technology, because we have our Florida group, but even within the state of Florida, it's hard to travel and get together very often. But maybe we could develop more of the regional, opportunities to collaborate under USASBE's umbrella, so that USASBE can kind of take ownership of it.
Yeah, maybe there's a new kind of different structure around the local thing that makes a little more sense to look into. That's
I also think we need to think realistically too about the impact that this extended pause, I guess, it is going to cause on our financial well-being at some of our institutions. I think a lot of our members are probably going to be looking at budget cuts at their universities. And so how can we continue to offer value if people may not be able, to make the trek to LA next year? We don't want to lose them.
Joan, what stands out to me is, we're talking about the connectivity between people. We're talking about the value that people are deriving from the journal and from the podcasts. As I go to the conference, one of the sessions I like the most is the competition between model programs and seeing what other schools are doing. And that is something that I think is the same sort of value that gets captured in some of the journal stuff and certainly in some of the podcasts. And yet it doesn't really have a way to be sticky or year round or tangential. But maybe if the model programs were to also do a webinar like this and walk through it for a wider audience that could be captured. I know I haven't for the last 2 years because of other duties been able to capture those sessions, and it's the one thing I've missed more than anything at the conference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I was talking to some people at the conference last year about are there ways to better highlight and feature those places, because they're doing amazing things. So it's nice to do that, but then also to be able to share it with others. So yeah, I definitely would second that and looking into something along those lines.
We've reached out after the meeting in New Orleans. We've reached out to the model programs and the different award winners to come and showcase what they're doing at our California Educators Conference that we're now moving to online as well. But Eric brings out a great point. I mean, those model programs are there for a reason, and we call them model, but as of now, I mean, we celebrate them at our national conference, but how can we better showcase them through USASBE and through other platforms so that people can truly model them when they're trying to build their own programs out. I mean, that's why we call it a model program. It's meant to be emulated by others. So I think we can do a better job of putting those programs out on the forefront so others can get ideas.
Yeah.
Just one comment. This is regarding a post that I made. So far, all of these ideas for engagement have one thing in common, and they're all great. The podcasts are great, but we are asking USASBE members, current and potential new members, to join us so they can listen to what we have to say. I'm wondering how we can engage them so as to give them a platform to speak. Because like Eric said, they have many things that they could be saying themselves. Do we put an open call to everybody for Tuesday podcast as speakers? Not, I don't know how to do this without opening up the floodgates, but presenting USASBE's value proposition as Don, you said a pontificator. We have a lot of great things to say, but that's just half of the equation, right? Listening to what our constituents have to say, especially now at a time where everything is changing. Maybe an additional value proposition for them. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'll jump in if I could. If you take the SIG groups, I really like this town hall idea, and it would be great to have kind of continuing kinds of topical conversations where different people could dial in if they see this of interest to themselves. And the SIG is a great leadership mechanism, to organize that, and would keep us all connected, but would allow us to participate in the conversation.
Yeah.
Good.
This is
amazing conversation. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say something really quick. This is Heidi Babson. I just want to echo what Mindy was talking about, that we really need to think through the consequence, the financial implications. I mean, Babson just announced we're freezing everything. Our asset, we can't even spend anything for the rest of the fiscal year. We have to refund tuition and board to the students that we kicked out of their dorms. Executive education is down. All of this, just millions and millions of dollars that are gone, which is, I'm sure, will affect Babson's sponsorship to USASBE. So I can only imagine it's going to affect other people's sponsorships to USASBE if everyone adopts similar policies that we're adopting in this crisis. So, I know how much how important the sponsorship is to the conference. So we really have to think about alternatives.
I second that, or third, I guess. I third that, right? Coming from Mindy, but no, I think that's also part of what the board is then thinking about, talking about, and ideating around are some other opportunities to even before this happened, right? Or some other opportunities for other kinds of partnerships or revenue models or that kind of a thing. So I think this may accelerate some of those conversations and opportunities for other people to jump in and share their thoughts. I like the idea of setting up a process maybe of more specific, sort of topical specific town halls like this, or these kind of things where people can jump into ones that they may be a little more interested in diving deep on. So that's something, Julie, I think we can, and Joe, we can kind of talk that through and, you know, see what sort of model makes sense and scheduling and all that.
As a sponsor, you know, I really hadn't thought about this until you just raised this question, you know, Heidi, I'm glad you did. We just, a few weeks ago, paid lots of sponsorship money to a lot of conferences and associations. And then all this hit, and people are asking, can we get the money back? You know, and I'm not so much interested in that as how I can get something from the money. And so ideas of things that I could sponsor, you know, with my marketplace is relevant to me. So if there is a conversation on certain topics that we could help sponsor, where there would be some visibility, Dawn, you might have the same kind of interest. You know, obviously we're not going to a conference. I shouldn't say that. We may not be going to a conference. And so I still have to get my name out there, and I still have to get the experiences out there. I still have to try to communicate with people about using simulations. So I don't mind spending some money, but maybe in smaller pieces. And so, you know, as a board, we might think about that. There may be others who are just like me. So you know, it's that bigger chunk may be harder to come by because I have to watch my cash flow now, but smaller pieces are probably a lot easier for me to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that idea, Ernie. Speaking of that a little bit and going off of some of the previous comments here, just to make sure we fit this in, you know, most people love the conference, right? We hear tons and tons of good stuff about the conference. And I think that we've had groups for years that have done a really good job of the conference. But so curious about, are there things that you would change? What's something you would change about the conference? What can we look at maybe improving upon or building upon specific to the conference? So just wanted to touch on that a little bit before we opened it up for kind of Q&A stuff.
Dawn, this is Tom. I would harken back to the earlier comment about kind of taking our own medicine before we answer that question and maybe do a little more elaborate customer discovery type customer empathy development, because I am a big fan of the conference, as you know. I think I get value out of it. This last one was really big. It was really hard to take in. I was there by myself from my school. So I kind of played small ball, which was effective for me. I think we may be looking at a new normal, and I really am grateful for what you and Jill setting this thing up, and the comments from Alex and Heidi in particular because of their past experience. I would, if it were me, I'd put that question out there and ask us all to go back and do a little bit of what we're teaching students to do. It happens to be front and center of my mind because I just read through a dozen customer empathy proposals. Got a lot of work to do. I'm looking at business models this week, and WebEx has just been a total cluster bomb, but we're getting there. So I would be intrigued to hear more, but I would caution against trying to answer that question right now. I mean, I hate to do that. I don't want to put the brakes on, but I really echo. I like that comment about the listening part, which is what you're doing.
Yeah, it's got to start there, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, so we just wanted to be able. I know, you know, that's sort of our big golden goose. And so, anytime we get a bunch of people together, we want to make sure we get any feedback we can on that particular thing.
No, fair enough. And I don't mean to derail. I guess I should to do it affirmatively.
Sure.
Would be to encourage everybody to think about not just the USASBE, but many of you attend other conferences. What works? I've been intrigued with kind of the hallway conference approach. Some smaller groups have done, which I think is what the SIGs are designed to do. And I end up spending a lot of time in the hallways in New Orleans, where I could get with groups of one or two. It's a challenge as the meetings get bigger.
Yeah.
Which dovetails with the regional, the virtual follow-ons. So that would be a suggestion: is offer more small opportunities in the interstitial spaces, I guess.
Yep.
To make a suggestion and not just say, "Hey, don't do that," which is really fucking drives me crazy when other people do it. So sorry.
No worries.
Hi,
I had,
Bonnie Reddy from Albright College. Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick.
no, go ahead.
One of the things that I've noticed, so at our last conference in New Orleans, we had a great opportunity to go out and see the local ecosystem, right? The entrepreneurial ecosystem of the artists and the entertainments. And it was just very eye-opening and very refreshing, but also an opportunity to partner and obtain funding. If you partner with your local governments, right? And right now they're all going to be struggling on how do we get restarted after this national crisis. Here's an opportunity where we could partner with local governments and support their renewal of their ecosystems and in support of all of these small businesses that are going to be suffering. So just a thought, if we could kind of work around that, that might be an excellent source for resources for our, our conference and our future.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point.
My point was very much related to that. I think whatever we can do to bring in actual entrepreneurs, like, I brought Carrie and Ashley last time to New Orleans, and they got actually some business out of the engagement. And I think in the spirit of helping entrepreneurial communities, to the degree we can bring in the right entrepreneurs to talk about something that is of interest to our mission as it relates to entrepreneurship education, it exposes them. It also exposes us to cutting edge thinking. And wherever we have the conference, there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs right there in that region. So it might be a good way for the organization to make local impact as we bring in like global presence.
Definitely. Yeah, so I wanted to also just make sure we had some time for Q&A, right? Like I said, Jill, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but Jill's here. She's the current president. I'll be the next president in line. Julie's here as our new CEO. And so, we may not have answers, but if people have questions about the organization, the conference, programming, membership, anything related to USASBE, we just wanted to open it up to people to ask any kind of questions you may have, and we'll do our best to address them. So anybody with any questions, the floor is yours.
Yeah, first off, Doan, I'd really, applaud and Julie, thank you for doing this, because this is something that we put in the strategic plan for this year. And it came sooner. I mean, we planned this before, really pretty much before everything happened. So, welcome your input, and really looking forward to other, doing this again. And also board and members who would like to lead something, new initiatives like this. It just gives us another opportunity, especially as we go into summer, we go into the fall. And Doan, I know when you plan for next year, just, the ideas that you have for the coming year and all. So
yep.
That's great.
Hey, Jill.
Hey, Patrick.
Quick question. What is the latest on the board, the transitioning of the operating governing board and all of that we were talking about at the
conference? Yeah. So we were, so Julie was able to
come out here, actually on our very first start date on March 9th, and spend a good 3 days here in LA, kind of going over, we've gone through and made some edits to the bylaws. And so we're in the process of editing that and then really going through the operations manual too as well. So, yeah, it's a work in progress right now, but we have a structure in place, and we have ways in terms of, we worked with, this has been ongoing for the past probably half a year, 8 months. And so we'll have some updates here really soon, and the bylaws they're getting into shape. But yeah, they haven't been edited for a while, a couple years, and then the operations manual hasn't been edited since 2016. So we're in that process, and actually scaling down the operations manual too as well. So yeah, we'll have some really cool updates coming up here very soon.
Anybody else got any curiosities or anything you're concerned about or wondering about that we can help address?
This is Tom again at Iowa State. What you've done here actually is really gotten the wheel spinning as for ways to kind of bring a pretty robust program here, which I characterize as at the front of the wave with respect to all of our extracurricular, co-curricular, but I feel that we're kind of at the back of the wave with respect to our curriculum. And part of that is driven as a R1 institution and a PhD program that the majority of our intro courses are taught by PhD students. And given the pressures on them, as I understand it, you know, and their classes are good. They run about 50 in size, so they're manageable size. But we get kind of what I would call intro light. And I teach the capstone course, or conduct it, as I like to say. And I'm getting a real diversity of preparedness, I guess, to put it politically, in the students that show up. And I don't know if any of you, particularly the larger schools, but people who've been through the range of the curriculum, and I've taught classes throughout the curriculum. I mean, 1 credit, you know, gateway course, intro, business model, planning, finance, right up to the capstones of different iterations. I have strong feelings about what I want students to be prepared with, but I would love some guidance as to how to perhaps, and what got me thinking about this is that accreditation question earlier. I would love to have, I mean, I'd kind of like to have what I view as Babson. I don't know if Heidi's still on, but I kind of perceive the Babson way. And I've always figured wherever you are, there's the Winkle way. That may not be fair to you. You know, at St. Thomas, I think there's a meeting of the minds among the faculty and staff up there. And we have a lot of very talented people, and we're all kind of doing our own thing. And then I get to pull it all together in that, you know, culminating experience at the end of the major, for instance. And it's challenging. And I would love not for there to be the Tom Swartwood way, because that's no good, but I wonder if it's reasonable to think of the Iowa State approach to entrepreneurship, or is that problematic? I don't know if that's the kind of question you're looking for, but that's what I'm wrestling with right now. But for, you know, coronavirus.
Yeah.
We'll get through that. I'd like to bring our curriculum, I'd like to make it more robust, more nimble. And it's hard to be nimble when you've got 6 different people teaching the intro course 6 different ways.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, we're running 600 students through the intro course every year now. So I don't know. I welcome any suggestions. If somebody wants to reach me offline, that's great. TM Swart at iastate.edu. Or point me at a group in USASBE. I kind of sit in and listen to the pedagogical stuff. This is a broader, almost more cultural shift that I'm seeking.
Yeah. No, I think that's something a little different, Tom. Yeah.
No, of course.
Well,
just food for thought. I mean, I'm going to reach out to some individuals. It's one of my projects for the summer. It looks like I'm going to have a lot of time, so I'm going to get.
Yeah. Other questions? Colleen, question while you're running.
It's actually a roller coaster.
Very apropos.
Down here. No, but one thing that I was thinking about is more of a YouTube presence, because like I have pitches for the students to do on Zoom, and their group pitches over Zoom. And I did a whole bunch of Googling this morning just to look for like an instructional video for that type of thing. And I'm sure other professors have the same kind of situation going on. And I checked out USASBE. They've got 2 YouTube channels. One seems a little bit older and one seems just for 2020. So that might be something that we could take on as like a mini project, because you know, students and professors now love video. So
yeah.
Back to the beach.
You know, one of the things that, you know I could use help on, and I'm sure others as well, as we, you know, I think we've all made the basic transition to online. But now we want to go from that foundation to taking it to other levels. So it would be, I think, interesting and informative for USASBE maybe to host something like this on tools for online, such as, I'd like to know how people are using discussion boards and polling and lecture capture. These are all the different tools that we need to become more conversant in and skilled at utilizing in meaningful ways. So, I mean, suppose we take it by a tool, and, you know, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming right now, but, you know, suppose we had a session on how are people using discussion boards to enhance engagement, or how are people using other tools. So I'm thinking about it from, you know, if we had themes of town halls like this, where people can give us advice on, you know, how they're using the tools. Just some thoughts. I mean, I'm gonna try to do that anyway by reaching out to very skilled people, but I think in a forum like this, USASBE could be a disseminator of useful information like that.
Yep, absolutely.
Alex? Dawn?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a very new member. I just joined in January, had a wonderful time at the conference in New Orleans. I had never visited New Orleans before, but I have a few points. Some are questions and some are advice. I just shared 2 links on the chat. One is a Facebook group called Higher Ed and the Coronavirus. On Facebook, over 27,000 members of that group. We're all sharing tips, venting, ideas, asking for ideas, resources, everything. I don't want to cannibalize. Let me be clear. I don't want to be cannibalizing, but sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes you can then vet where you can get what kind of information, and the more people have all this information, the better. I'm the comm chair for the Centers and Institute SIG. So I realize that this information is more in keeping with that group, but you let me know if you don't think it's relevant. There's two goals that we have here, is the outgoing information, right? All these classes, et cetera, that we're doing, everything that's available to tell our communities what programs are available, whether it's the Small Business Administration or anything like that. And for those outgoing webinars, we've been actually since the fall having monthly webinars where we invite everyone. I'm sorry, I'm Cecilia Pineda. I'm at the Entrepreneurship Center at Columbia Business School. And we've been having since the fall these monthly webinars where everyone in our community is welcome. We're using the Startup Tree platform. And I've been asking around to see what other schools within the Columbia system are using. And people are using Instagram to get people to submit questions. I just attended an online conference called the Social Media Weekend, run by Sri Srinivasan, who was the former Chief Digital Officer for New York City, for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, for Columbia University. And he, every couple of years, has run this Social Media Weekend. And he calls it Social Media Weekend. However, it is all online communications, really. So one of the links that I just shared is a presentation that was shared with us. People paid up to $200 to attend this formerly in-person event that became online very quickly. And this gentleman said it was okay to share his slide presentation, and there's plenty of helpful tools. Now, how people are finding working with those tools, to Alex's question, I don't know, but here among ourselves and on that Facebook group, we can find out. I am looking to, since I'm the comms person for the SIG and also at our Entrepreneurship Center, I'm looking to engage our community, students as well as alumni, because they are freaking out. And we're trying to figure out what are the best platforms, because people do have platform fatigue. So we're trying social media, we're trying to figure out Zoom Pro with all those breakout rooms, the module for breakout rooms that you could do. People are just trying to see what works. Another woman was talking about that they're using Blackboard for this. Almost done. And just to let you know what we've been doing since the fall, as far as virtually, is at least for the alumni, but now we're moving to this format for our students, is we have a virtual, a Columbia Alumni Virtual Accelerator. We've just started the second cohort. That entailed 2 90-minute sessions per week with 10 companies in 4 countries throughout 7 cities. And they each took turns discussing their challenges as entrepreneurs. As far as in the educational setting, that can also work, especially if there are students that are working on their startups at the same time. And then at the end, I'm almost done. And at the end, there was a virtual demo day where we had almost 100 investors and other alumni attend. And then after that, we distributed individual pitches of each of the companies. And each of those companies had a couple of investors, at least a couple of investors that wanted more information and wanted to connect with those companies. So that's something we're going forward, because we, yes, also used to have a lot of in-person events, and who knows, really, who knows how long this is going to last.
Yeah.
I have more, but
those are great resources. Those are great. So and I've got the slides pulled up that you shared on group chat. They are very helpful, so I encourage everybody to take a look at those. So we are over by 2 minutes, and I want to be conscious of everybody's time. Time is of great importance. Dawn, do you have any final words, and just a call out if people want to continue the conversation?
Absolutely. So thank you very much. It's a lot to wrap into a short period of time with a lot of people. So we appreciate everybody joining us, and I'm glad it worked out technologically wise. We're going to continue to host some version of these kind of things, and we'll work on, a format and a timing and schedule and all those kind of things. And so we want to continue to listen. We want to share a little bit more of what's going on, and we'll be doing that in the future. Any sort of feedback, any ideas, any concerns, any problems, anything that comes up, good, bad, or ugly, or beautiful. Julie and I are very available. Jill is very available. I'll offer that up. Sorry, Jill, if I shouldn't. But as the leadership, we're very available and very interested in your voice. So you'll be getting emails from us with links to this recording and other resources. But we really look forward to continuing these kind of conversations, maybe smaller scale around certain topics or points of discussion, just to be able to dive deeper a little bit more. But we really appreciate your time. We hope everybody stays happy and healthy and well, and doesn't pull their hair out too much while we're all going through this. So everybody be well, and we will be in touch very soon.